Hey everyone, David here. So we got a new episode of The Walking Dead, and here I am to review it, which hopefully will be somewhat of an easy task because this week things slowed down quite an awful lot, and because of that, I feel like The Walking Dead delivered its first week episode of the sixth season. Up until this point, it's been a humongous thrill ride, and even if we had a standalone episode last week, like I said in that review, it was almost like a little mini movie centered on Morgan, and it was great. And prior to that, we had this whole thing with the Walkers and this plan that just went batshit crazy, and Rick and his group trying to solve the entire thing. This week, however, it had nothing to do with the plan. It had nothing to do with some of those central characters. It had to do with the Alexandrians and how they're reeling in with this plan that just went to shit. And what exactly are they feeling mainly after the second episode? Because the first episode was out there dealing with this horde of zombies, and the third episode was a similar thing that centered on that big scene with Glenn and the group, Michonne, all of them that are going through these towns trying to evade the walkers as Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham are trying to derail the other half of this horde. And then the fourth episode was, of course, the little mini movie with Morgan. So this week, it kind of ties back to episode 2, only this time it's literally that breath that you catch after you just ran like a mile run. It's that breath and just looking around and be like, okay, so that's done. That's pretty much this entire episode. And here's the deal. Just because the episode slows down like that, it doesn't mean that it's going to be bad. It doesn't mean that it's not going to well, let's be honest, it's not going to compare to those other episodes, I'll admit that. But it can still be good in its own right if it's delivering great character material, if it makes us feel for these characters a whole lot more. And in some areas, it succeeded. One of them is Jessie, which is the girl that Rick has the hots for. But I like one of the things that I liked about her in this episode was the fact that she has accepted that she's going to need to fight. She knows that Alexandria is gonna burn up if things don't change, and that's why I liked her little spill after she kills that walker that committed suicide, which was a nice, like I said, it was a nice little beat for not just for her character, but also for that town after witnessing her taking down that person who committed suicide because they just saw no hope. Like, Alexandrians are legitimately getting beaten over the head with reality, a reality that Rick has been trying to beat into their heads for some time now, and now it's barely sinking in. And for some people, they're not going to be able to take it, and for others, like Jessie, it looks like she's going to be able to pull through. Just not a huge fan of how she kind of gave in to Rick after she had kind of like put her foot down, saying, "Hey, I'm good from you." I don't know. Like, I understand that she can hold her own now, but it just seemed kind of against character for her to actually give in to Rick. I understand that it's the end of the world, and we saw other characters also trying to seize the moment. But and maybe that's what she was trying to do. But it's one of those scenes that I prefer. I would have written a different way if I was the writer. I would have been like, no, you just walk away, Rick. You go back to your little corner there. That's how I would have preferred it. But still, not that big of a deal. We had Denise the doctor, has a nice ring to it, who gave Tara this surprising kiss. Oh my God! After she has successfully saved the life of that guy who survived episode 3. One of the only survivors from that episode. And this was, again, a nice moment for that character because I actually felt like rooting for her. She's a likable character because of how scared and afraid she is, but there's something lurking within her that's making her not wussy out of this entire situation. There's a reason for why she's still down on the ground reading that Bible of a book. Bibles are not even that big. Grey's Anatomy? Really? Oh my God. Anyways, that totally scares me from being a doctor. But the fact that she's taking on such a material and going into a potential profession that can mean saving lives, you take that, apply it to the regular world, and then multiply it times 2 after applying it to this particular world. This thing that she's taking up the mantle of being the doctor within the town of Alexandria is a humongous feat, and the fact that she's just there alone and she has not run away, she has not killed herself, and I really do consider that, considering that we've seen that other character off herself off, and then Jessie has to take care of her. The fact that she is still there and she's still doing it for a reason is the fact that that I feel like this character is ultimately rootable, and or you root for her. Rootable. I don't know what does that even mean? And then my boy Aaron finally comes back to actually do something. I mean, it's been a while within this season that he has hardly ever appeared, so I'm glad to see that he became part of the story for this episode, much more integral than the others, especially when it came to connecting with Maggie and helping her out after her finding out at the beginning of this episode that Glenn may or may not be dead. And in a way, Maggie kind of becomes a cipher for the audience, where we don't even know for sure if Glenn is dead or not, because like I said, we have all those theories about whether or not Glenn is still alive. And the fact that they're writing Maggie to feel almost the exact same way that the audience is feeling about Glenn's potential death, I get the feeling that maybe, just maybe, there's something to hold out for. I mean, I feel like maybe they wouldn't have written Maggie to feel this particular way and to emphasize her writing out his name by the end. And I do appreciate the little twist between Aaron and Maggie about not going through this little mission to find out whether or not Glenn is still alive out there. They stop midpoint, and Maggie has this realization, that this epiphany, that maybe it's best to not just go out there and just at least wait for him. Even though I don't want to do it, I need to come to my senses. And if that was it right there, it would have been a little bit troubling for her character, because we know that she can be tough as nails and she will do anything what it takes to bring Glenn home after Glenn holds the award for being the husband of the year within the post-apocalyptic world. But the fact that she reveals that she's pregnant is enough for me to go, okay, I get why you actually want to stay back, because this is probably what Glenn would have wanted. Do you want to risk both you and your baby, or at least give your baby to have some kind of chance of living? Maybe by the time they grow up, things could theoretically calm down. Maybe the this whole zombie thing will just dissolve. And from that standpoint, that's where I understood why Maggie decided to back down, and is still keeping hopes that maybe Glenn will be coming down that road, walking up to Alexandria. But I get the feeling that's not going to happen for quite some time, if it happened. But I'm glad to see that Aaron got some overdue screen time. Plus, sewer zombies. Totally awesome. That was an awesome effect, and as soon as they jump into the sewers, I'm like, please, you gotta do something with those sewers in terms of bringing us a cool looking zombie. Unfortunately, they did. I was hoping for maybe them to kind of like pop out of the walls and leave like this really cool shot imprinted in our brains, but we only got two. But still, the fact that they went there was pretty neat. It's just a shame that not every Alexandrian that we caught up with was as neat as all these other things that we saw really reeling in after the tragic events of the past few episodes. Oh my god, pretty much everything that had to do with the teenagers in this episode. Especially this little shithead Ron. Oh my god, oh my god, he's the new Nicholas. Dude, Nicholas is gone, so we need that new character to fill in the void. And that entity is known as Ronald. This little So in this episode, we already get some more reasons to hate him. I mean, first of all, it looks like he wants to kill Carl, which is already a repeated storyline that we've seen in The Walking Dead countless times by the 60s, and now, I mean, we're going to do this again, and this time with characters that we're not completely attached with teenagers, teen actors, in fact, that aren't necessarily the best actors to begin with. I mean, I'm sorry, Chandler Riggs, but there are times where he's just like always moving his head whenever he talks. And then we get that little fancy fight between the two of them, and then that causes Ron to go over to Rick and be like, hey, look, I try to look out for him, and then we got this whole thing where he's gonna make him get on his side, so later on when there's some kind of confrontation, Rick is gonna believe Ron over his own son, and we're gonna have that type of storyline. I'm like, no. Especially when he's like, nobody ever taught me how to shoot. Oh, well, here you go. I really wish my son was as smart as you. No! And what was up with Deanna in this episode? I mean, I understand that she is still, like everybody else, trying to bring it back together after that explosive event, because we have to keep in mind that this happened almost probably like a day or so after that second episode where shit went down within Alexandria. So I'm trying my best to keep that in mind, and I understand that people are going to be shocked. We had that scene that I actually kind of liked with her son going into the pantry and everybody's like, you know what, just screw it, and it looks like they were gonna raid it, and he stops it only to turn out that he was also creating this plan to steal it for himself. And even though it made that character unlikable, it added some tension that was kind of somewhat understandable. It was like this tragic thing that you enjoy watching, even if you don't like the particular character. But Deanna had her moments where she was cool. I like that scene where she was brewing up an idea that her husband would have come up with, where she was writing the schematics, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then later on, where she finally blows up and kills that walker, even though nobody told her that you need to go for the head. I understand that she's a short lady, but as soon as that walker got down, she kept stabbing at the chest. It's the head. It would have been kind of a nice comedic moment for Rick to be like, it's supposed to do the head. It's the head. But besides those two moments, I am about to recreate Deanna throughout this entire episode. That's it. That's her face. The entire episode just... She's a shamble away from being a walker herself. So here's the deal. I understand that every so often there has to be an episode that lets us catch our breath, but here's the thing. I feel like the people who are The Walking Dead, yeah, they lost focus. They lost focus in terms of not writing the episodes, because the episodes are still doing pretty well, and this was still a good episode. But in terms of listing these episodes correctly within the season, I feel like things are a little off. I feel like maybe this episode should have came last week, and we would have swapped with Morgan's episode, and then, therefore, Morgan's episode would have felt like a better improvement over last week's, if this was to be last week's episode. That way it kind of connects with that last one where we left off with Rick being in that RV, helpless. And it would have been nice to see him gotten out of that situation, because he was surrounded. And then this episode opens up with him just running towards Alexandria. So some explanation there could have been nice. I mean, if he got out of that, who knows? Maybe Glenn could have definitely gotten himself out of that situation. What the problem is with this episode, however, is, and what makes it the weakest of the 5 that we have out so far for season 6, is the fact that there was a little bit too much catching up with these characters. Some were great, but then others lacked, and those moments that lacked in this episode gave me the notion that this was a filler episode. I'm not entirely sure if this was the intention to have this episode within the season, or maybe they just came up with it on the spot. I mean, I gotta be honest, that scene between Ron and Rick, when they were up talking with one another, overlooking that horde of zombies up against the wall, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way Rick's hair looked, or the fact that Ron wasn't wearing a hat, or maybe the backdrops against the walkers, or against Alexandra in the distance. There was something about that scene that felt like a reshoot. I don't know if maybe that was me, but there was something about that episode that felt like it was shot after that episode was actually completed, and then they were starting up a new episode or something like that, but they went back and added that scene. I don't know what it was, but I just got the feeling that was what was happening, and that's why I felt like half of this episode might have been reshot and became filler material, just so that they can push it to that 43-minute running time to then put in the commercials and make it an hour-long episode. And because of that, it suffers, and it became the weakest episode of season 6 so far. So for that, I give Now, which I gotta be honest, is also a lazy title for an episode to boot, I give it a low 8 out of 10. It was still a good episode, filled with great character beats for some of these characters, especially bringing back Aaron and making him do something very important with a character that's equally as important and could very well become a cipher for the audience. But you gotta know what to edit together and where to put certain episodes. And hopefully the remaining 3 won't let us down, because we only got 3 before we take that 2-month-long break before Walking Dead returns with its last 8 episodes of Season 6. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of The Walking Dead, and I'll see you guys next time.